The courthouse smelled of old wood and lemon polish, the kind of scent that reminded Maya Torres of 1,000 other buildings she had cleaned over the years. She straightened her black robe, still not entirely used to the weight of it across her shoulders, and reviewed the case file before her one final time. Her courtroom was small but dignified, with tall windows that let in the gray morning light of a February day. She had been a judge for only 8 months, appointed to the family court after 15 years of practicing family law. Every morning still felt like a small miracle that she was here, behind this bench, instead of on her knees scrubbing someone else's floors. The bailiff called the first case of the day, and Maya looked up as the parties entered. The woman who walked through the door stopped Maya's heart. Eleanor Whitmore. She was older now, of course, her silver hair cut shorter than Maya remembered, her posture slightly stooped where it had once been ramrod straight. But those eyes were the same, that particular shade of blue, sharp and assessing, that had watched Maya vacuum her carpets and dust her bookshelves and scrub her bathrooms for 3 years. Eleanor didn't recognize her. Why would she? Maya had been 22 when she started cleaning the Whitmore house, working her way through community college one toilet brush at a time. She had been invisible then, just the cleaning girl who came every Tuesday and Friday, who let herself in with the key under the ceramic frog, and let herself out before anyone came home. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she set down the file. She should recuse herself. She knew she should. There were procedures for this, rules about conflicts of interest and personal connections to cases. But something kept her seated. The case file told a story she recognized in her bones. Eleanor Whitmore, 73, seeking legal guardianship of her great-granddaughter, Lily, age 6. The child's parents had died in a car accident 4 months ago. There were no other family members willing or able to take her. Child Protective Services had placed Lily in temporary foster care while the guardianship petition worked its way through the system. The opposing attorney, representing the state, had raised concerns about Eleanor's age and ability to care for a young child. There would be home visits to review, financial statements to examine, character witnesses to hear. Maya watched Eleanor take her seat at the petitioner's table. The older woman's hands shook as she organized her papers, and Maya noticed the slight tremor had worsened with age. But those same hands had once left Maya something that changed her entire life. She remembered it so clearly, the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, her junior year of community college. She had arrived at the Whitmore house exhausted, having worked a double shift at the diner the night before. Her grades were slipping, her rent was late, and she had just received a letter informing her that her financial aid appeal had been denied. She had cried while cleaning the upstairs bathroom, just for a moment, just a few tears that she quickly wiped away. But she had cried, and she hadn't known that Eleanor had come home early, hadn't heard her footsteps in the hallway, hadn't realized anyone had witnessed her moment of weakness. When Maya came downstairs, she found an envelope on the kitchen counter with her name on it. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a handwritten note. Education is the one thing no one can ever take from you. I watched my mother clean houses her whole life. She made sure I didn't have to. Now, I'm making sure you don't have to either. Pay it forward when you can. E.W. Maya had tried to return it. She had left the check on the counter the following Friday, along with a note explaining that she couldn't accept such a gift. But Eleanor had mailed it to her apartment with another note. It's not a gift, it's an investment. I expect a return on it someday, just not from you. That check had paid for Maya's LSAT prep course. It had covered the application fees for law school. It had been the first domino in a chain that led her from scrubbing toilets to sitting on a bench in a black robe with the power to change people's lives. And Eleanor Whitmore had never once mentioned it again. The few times Maya saw her after that, passing in the hallway, nodding briefly in the kitchen, the older woman had treated her exactly the same. Professionally, distantly, as if nothing had happened. Maya had always wondered if Eleanor even remembered. The hearing began with standard proceedings. Eleanor's attorney, a young woman with nervous energy, presented the petition for guardianship. She outlined Eleanor's financial stability, her long history in the community, her relationship with Lily before the accident. Mrs. Whitmore has been a constant presence in Lily's life since birth, the attorney explained. She's retired from teaching, owns her home outright, and has the means to provide for the child's education and welfare. The state's attorney rose to present concerns. Your Honor, while we don't dispute Mrs. Whitmore's affection for the child, we must consider practical matters. She is 73 years old. Lily is 6. By the time Lily graduates high school, Mrs. Whitmore will be 85. The state has a responsibility to ensure that any guardianship arrangement serves the child's long-term interests. Maya listened as witnesses were called. A neighbor testified to Eleanor's character. A financial advisor confirmed her resources. A doctor spoke about her overall good health, with acknowledgement of the minor tremor in her hands and some mild arthritis. And then the state called the social worker who had conducted the home visit. "I found the home to be clean and well-maintained," the social worker reported. "Mrs. Whitmore clearly loves the child and is motivated to provide for her. However, I do have some concerns about her ability to keep up with an active 6-year-old. During my visit, Mrs. Whitmore appeared fatigued, and she mentioned difficulty sleeping since taking on Lily's care." "And the child?" the state's attorney asked. "What is her preference?" The social worker shifted uncomfortably. "Lily is very attached to her great-grandmother. She was initially resistant to the foster placement and has expressed repeated desire to return to Mrs. Whitmore's care." "But she's 6, the attorney pressed. "Can we really allow a 6-year-old's preferences to override legitimate concerns about appropriate care?" Maya had heard enough. "The court will take a brief recess," she announced. "I'd like to speak with the child privately in chambers, with the guardian ad litem present." The courtroom stirred with surprise. This was unusual, but within her discretion. Maya needed to see for herself what this little girl was like, what she understood about her situation. 20 minutes later, Lily Whitmore was escorted into Maya's chambers by the guardian ad litem, a patient woman named Dr. Sullivan, who specialized in children's welfare. Lily was small for 6, with brown hair pulled back in a ponytail and enormous eyes that looked too serious for her age. She clutched a worn stuffed rabbit to her chest and looked around the chambers with wary curiosity. "Hello, Lily," Maya said gently, coming around from behind her desk to sit in one of the lower chairs. "I'm Judge Torres. I'm trying to help figure out where you're going to live." "With Grammy," Lily said immediately. "I want to live with Grammy," Maya smiled. "Can you tell me why?" Lily considered the question with the gravity of someone much older. "Grammy makes pancakes on Sunday, and she reads me stories with all the voices, and she lets me help water the flowers, even though I sometimes spill." "Those sound like nice things," Maya agreed. "And Grammy needs me," Lily added quietly. "She's sad because Mommy and Daddy went to heaven. I help her be less sad." Maya felt her throat tighten. "How do you help her?" "I draw her pictures, and I give her hugs. And sometimes, when she cries, I pat her hand like she pats mine." Lily's lower lip trembled slightly. "The lady at the other house is nice, but she doesn't need me. Grammy needs me." Dr. Sullivan caught Maya's eye, communicating silently what they both recognized. This was not a child who had been coached or manipulated. This was a child who had processed grief in her own way and arrived at her own understanding of what family meant. "Lily," Maya said carefully, "some people are worried that Grammy might get tired taking care of you. What do you think about that?" Lily's brow furrowed. "Grammy says being tired is just part of loving someone. She says her body might be old, but her heart is strong enough for both of us." She paused, then added with devastating simplicity, "I don't need someone with a young body. I need Grammy." After Lily was escorted back to the waiting area, Maya sat alone in her chambers for a long moment. She thought about her own grandmother, who had raised her after her parents' divorce scattered them all to different states. She thought about the women who had shaped her, teachers and neighbors, and yes, employers like Eleanor Whitmore, who had seen something in a crying cleaning girl and decided to do something about it. She thought about how many times she had been told she was too poor, too inexperienced, too much of a long shot to succeed. When court reconvened, Maya had made her decision. "I've reviewed the evidence presented today, including the testimony of witnesses and my own interview with the child in question," she began. "The state has raised legitimate concerns about Mrs. Whitmore's age and ability to provide long-term care for a minor. These concerns deserve serious consideration." Eleanor's hands gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. "However," Maya continued, "the law does not require guardians to be young. It requires them to be capable, loving, and committed to the child's welfare. Mrs. Whitmore has demonstrated all of these qualities. Furthermore, the child herself has expressed clear preference for her great-grandmother's care, and that preference appears to be based on a genuine, healthy attachment rather than manipulation or misunderstanding of her situation." Maya paused, gathering herself. "I'm also going to speak personally for a moment, though it's irregular. Many years ago, I was a young woman working my way through school. I cleaned houses to pay my bills. One of those houses belonged to Mrs. Whitmore." Eleanor's head snapped up, her eyes finally focusing on Maya's face with recognition. "She didn't know me well. We rarely spoke. But she saw that I was struggling, and she did something about it. She gave me money for my education, an investment, she called it. She asked me to pay it forward when I could. Maya's voice wavered slightly. I've tried to do that in my career, but I never got to thank her properly. Eleanor's eyes had filled with tears. This is not why I'm granting the guardianship petition, Maya said firmly. I'm granting it because it's the right decision for this child. But I want it on the record that I know something about Eleanor Whitmore's character that no home visit or financial statement can capture. I know that she's the kind of person who helps strangers without expectation of return. I know that she believes in investing in people's futures, and I know in my bones that Lily could not be in better hands. Maya picked up her gavel. Petition for guardianship is granted. Mrs. Whitmore will have full legal custody of the minor child. This court recommends regular check-ins with the guardian ad litem for the first year to ensure adequate support systems are in place. The foster placement is hereby terminated, effective immediately. The sound of the gavel was final and sharp, like a period at the end of a very long sentence. In the chaos of papers and congratulations that followed, Maya retreated to her chambers. She had other cases to review, other lives to adjudicate, but she couldn't quite focus. 20 minutes later, there was a soft knock at her door. Eleanor Whitmore stood in the doorway, looking uncertain for perhaps the first time Maya had ever seen. The bailiff said you might have a moment, Eleanor said hesitantly. Maya stood. Of course, please come in. Eleanor entered slowly, taking in the chambers with their law books and family photos and small tokens of a life built brick by brick, year by year. I didn't recognize you, Eleanor said finally. In the courtroom. I'm so sorry. Why would you? It's been over 20 years and You were crying in my bathroom, Eleanor interrupted softly. The Tuesday after Thanksgiving. I came home early because I forgot my reading glasses. I heard you crying, and I stood in the hallway like an old fool, not knowing what to do. I'd watched you for months, so determined, so tired, so careful with my things. My mother was a cleaning woman her whole life. She raised me on her knees, scrubbing floors, and she made sure I never had to do the same. Watching you felt like watching her, like watching myself in another life. Maya felt tears threatening. That check changed everything. I didn't even know if you'd cash it. You left it on the counter that Friday, and I thought maybe I'd offended you, overstepped. You terrified me, Maya admitted. I didn't understand why a stranger would do something like that. You weren't a stranger. You were a young woman who reminded me that kindness matters, that education matters, that we're all just one helping hand away from becoming something more than our circumstances. Eleanor's voice broke. And now you've done the same for me. For Lily. I meant what I said. The decision was based on the evidence. I know, but you also told the truth, which was brave. And you saw me, really saw me, the way I once saw you. Eleanor stepped forward and took Maya's hands in her own trembling ones. I'm going to pay it forward. That's what I told you to do. And I'm going to do it too. I'm going to raise that little girl to be someone who helps people the way you've helped people, the way you've helped us. Maya squeezed her hands gently. She already knows how. She told me she pats your hand when you cry. Eleanor laughed, a watery sound. She does. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me, even though she came from the worst thing I've ever experienced. They stood together in the quiet of the chambers, two women whose lives had intersected decades ago and finally come full circle in a moment neither could have predicted. 6 months later, Maya received an envelope in her office mail. Inside was a photograph, Eleanor and Lily in a garden, both wearing sun hats, both grinning at the camera. Lily held a watering can triumphantly over a bed of marigolds. The note on the back read, "She wants to be a judge when she grows up. She says she wants to help families like you helped ours. The investment continues. E.W." Maya pinned the photo above her desk, where she could see it every morning when she put on her robe. A reminder that kindness has a way of circling back, that small acts of generosity plant seeds in soil you may never see again. She had cleaned Eleanor Whitmore's house to pay for her future. Now she sat in a courtroom, wearing black robes, helping other people find theirs. And somewhere across town, a little girl was learning that love isn't about having a young body or a perfect plan. It's about having a heart strong enough for two and the courage to share it.